Hi, I'm Adam Mills with Royal LePage, and I'd like to welcome you to What's the Deal with the Modern Multifunctional Home? So if you're like a lot of us, you're likely struggling with, how do we use our space, for so many different things, from parenting to, it could be playtime, could be studying, working from home, hosting friends, hosting family. There's so many things that you can try and get out of a space that you live in. But so how do you do it so you can actually get all those functions out of it and then have the space actually look and feel good too? So that's something that I think a lot of us are struggling with. And I'm super excited today. I have Ottawa interior-based designer Ashley Izsak here, and she's here to tell you, you know what, you're not alone, but you don't have to be. You can actually solve this problem. So Ashley is someone I've known for a little while. And as I say, an Ottawa-based interior designer, she's known for her aesthetic and design vision, as well as her meticulous attention to detail and the ease at which she walks her clients through the major brand interior and style transformations. Over the past 2 years, Ashley's earned multiple accolades, including being featured on the cover of Ottawa magazine. And something that's really, really cool I find about Ashley too is that when she's not designing, she's someone that will say, you know what, I'm taking off, I'm gonna go camping with the kids. We're gonna go open our pop-up camper and we're gonna have a blast. So such a well-rounded, really cool individual. And for those of you who want to connect with her, obviously ashleyizsak.com, or you can get her here on Instagram as well. And her handle is Ashley Izsak. So anyways, thank you again so much for agreeing to do this live. I know I'm taking a little bit out of your comfort zone here doing a live, but
that's okay.
No, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So what I wanted to dive into is, like getting into that, into that topic of the multifunctional home. And I guess, even before we get into it, maybe we can bring people a little bit up to speed about, how did you get into the design world? And then we can kind of dive into like, how did this multifunctional home thing really, come about?
Sure. Yeah. So the quick sort of rundown is that I wanted to do interior design when I was younger. My parents said, do engineering or business, something that's going to make a lot of money. So I was like, all right, got a business degree. Worked in corporate for a while, hated it. Then we were having twins. So I was like, okay, this is a big enough like shift that I can like quit my job. I had a blog at the time, and that's kind of where it started years ago. I was blogging about infertility. It's so random, but
Oh, wow.
I was doing like design stuff for friends all the time on the side. So I started putting that on the blog, and eventually I just started getting clients. It didn't, my girls are 11 now, so it's been a while.
Wow.
It went from residential. I did do some commercial, and at the beginning, I was doing a lot of sort of full house guts, some big commercial projects. But over the last, I would say like 2 years, basically pandemic, I've sort of shifted my focus as well, to go from, those big renos to more just like the finishing. So, I work with clients now to come in and really make their home feel like theirs, like something they can be excited about, right?
Mm.
They come home and it's like, you can pick, anyone can pick out, tile, whatever. A lot of people that I work with too have just sort of gotten a reno done, but they're like, the reno is nice, but it doesn't feel like a house. Like it doesn't feel like our house, it just feels kind of sterile now. So I love to come in and kind of like really talk to families or, couples about, what are you using this for, or what do you want to be using it for? And then coming up with a plan to kind of inject some personality, and just, add, I'm saying it again, but it's really adding personality through design. That, then they come home and they're like, I love this, I'm using these rooms more, and, I come home and I just really love this space. So that's kind of where I've, gone to. Pandemic made renos challenging, and I know a lot of designers who are still doing renos, and I refer
Yeah, how was it dealing with like renovations and trades and supply chain
It
and
was a
all that fun
nightmare.
stuff?
I had like a few big kitchen renos going on right at the first lockdown. It was a complete nightmare. It was like,
Perfect timing.
okay, well, I guess I'm not visiting that site, and we'll just hope
Yeah.
everything, So yeah, it was just a lot of delays, and and contractors that I used to work with too. Some of them got out of the reno business too. Now they're just building their own homes and selling them because they were encountering similar things. So there's still some great contractors out there and everything, but for me personally, and then having 3 kids and going through 2 years of lockdowns where, because it's my business, you know, my husband has a, you know, he has, you know, a salaried, you know, he is the engineer, so he has that job. So with me, it was me that was the flexible, like, okay, let's do all the school calls and everything. So then too, it was like, for me, it's about, I love the finishing. Like I love going, you know, all in with, you know, something really different, or, you know, that clients end up loving. And I feel like I can sort of get that maximum impact without having to do the full reno. So that's kind of,
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm
So,
at.
so COVID then like really almost, I mean, it threw a wrench in the works. Like, you know, you had these kitchen rentals like on the go. You probably were pulling your hair out, losing your mind. And
Yes.
then you said, okay, let's make a change. And then you came up with what, and I think I'm quoting it right, but it's called living in design is kind of like, is what you, the term you've coined to really like, again, like take those spaces, transform them into something that, you know, fits people's personalities and fits all of the functions that they need that space to actually unlock for their lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've had so many families come to me and say like, okay, we're both working from home now. We have 2 or 3 kids. Like our house looks like a disaster. You know, come and see it, but don't judge me. And you know, and then you know, being able to walk through, you know, that's how it always starts. Is I still now without, you know, now that you can, I go in, I walk through the space. We sort of talk about things that they might not necessarily have thought of. And I think a lot of the times too, and I'm coming at it from like a family perspective, just because I have 3 kids, so I often families do gravitate towards me because on my Instagram I share a lot of like kids spaces or
Mhm.
things like that. But when I go in, I think a lot of people convince themselves that like, oh, I have to have like 200 baskets and they have to be everywhere, and like my house has to look like this because, you know, because we're working from home, because we're doing this. But like it really doesn't, you know. And sort of once I point out, you know, go through the pain points and point out like, have you ever considered, you know, buying a really nice like sideboard or something like that, and putting that in your living room and putting all the toys in there instead of, you know, you kind of like trick, you know, you trick
Yeah.
yourself too. Like closed doors are like your best friend, you know. Um,
So
so
you don't have to get rid of and make your kids miserable. Like you can
no,
actually,
no, I'm
they can
not
still have
like,
all their
yeah,
things.
some people were like, oh, I remember getting an Instagram comment years ago because I shared a pic of my basement at one point, which is not a pretty place. And someone was like, I knew it. I knew you had an ugly basement, like full of toys. And I'm like, no, we're hardly down here. Like it's mostly storage at the time. Like
Yeah.
you know, all the crafts and all the stuff they use, the slime, it's
Yeah.
all up here. It's all like in the back of my kitchen island and in our, you know, sideboards, buffets, things like that. So, um, so yeah, I love sort of waking people up to the fact that like you can have function, but you can have a place that you walk in, you're like, oh my God, this is my house. I love this, you know?
That's amazing. Yeah, I think a lot of people miss that message and they think that you have to like minimalize everything and it look like, you know, it belongs in a magazine and they think, okay, but
Yeah.
where's all my stuff? Like where's my real life gonna be?
Yeah, and I find too, like a lot of magazines, it's not real, or it looks nice, but it's not like it's not you. You know, like anyone can
Yeah.
go in a model home and make a model home nice, but like, does that feel like it's you? Like, you know, what kind of art do you like? You know, where do you like to travel? Like, I like to explore these things, so then we can like look at, you know, photography or accessories or something that's going to come and like it's going to really feel like it was designed for you and not just because it's some trend or something that's going to go away in, you know, 5 minutes.
And so like what are like the top things? Like I mean if there are top things, I'm guessing every consult that you would do is like wildly different from the next, but like what
Very.
are like the like, are there a couple like reoccurring things that like always come out of it that are always like just like good general advice for people that you have?
I find like one thing is paint. You know, I feel like people underestimate the power of paint, which I'm sure you come across too, right? Like selling homes.
Yeah,
I always laugh at those real estate shows where they're like, people come in and they're like, oh, I don't like this color. You know, like it's like the end
yeah,
of the world. And
100%.
so I always, you know, every consultation I do, I bring paint swatches, you know, no matter what.
Yeah.
Um, and it's kind of waking people up to like, you know, start with paint, start with a good base, and then let's bring in all these, you know, accessories and everything to kind of like that needs to add the personality. It doesn't have to be like painting your room red or you know, whatever. I mean, it all depends on the client, right? Gauging like how
Mm.
bold they want, how, you know, not bold, but it's, so it's sort of paint is like a quick fix. thing too is more like coming up with smart solutions for like work from home spaces. That's come up a lot in the last couple of years.
Like, is there ways to like transform people's like dining rooms or living rooms like in a functional way into like an office as well? Is that a
Well,
thing?
I mean, yeah, I have had some clients do that. And I personally work at my kitchen island. I have a whole room that is like, it's like where I meditate and work out, but it could easily be an office. And I'm like, no, I prefer just to work at the kitchen. But
Right.
when I do things like that, and I do share this with clients, depending on how much they work from home too, and whether they have kids or, you know, noise or whatever around, you know, I have like at the island, I have like I have a cabinet that is facing our dining table. And
Yeah.
I have that's where I keep my laptop. That's where I keep like, you know, material samples that I'm using right now kind of thing. And then I have a cabinet that was an antique from actually my husband's grandmother. And I have like more samples there and my paint swatches, like everything that I need to leave the house to go to a consult. So I have, you know, going into people's homes, sometimes it's about bringing a piece into their entryway that has like multi-function. Like, okay, there's areas in here where, you know, we can put keys and stuff, but there's also like a big compartment in the front where they can put their like, you know, briefcase or whatever you want to call it now. And just sort of looking around at the existing pieces they have or suggesting things that aren't officey. So I think that's kind of the key there.
Right.
Let's not get like some hideous desk and put it in your living room. Like I will never suggest that.
That's what I was told in my mind. I'm like, yeah, I'm putting like an old crappy or like an IKEA desk that
Oh,
doesn't
and
fit
that's what
anything,
people do, right?
and I'm
Oh,
just
I
gonna throw
had
it in
this in
my
my basement. So, you know,
yeah.
do you think that would work up here?
Yeah.
No, don't.
So
It's in your
you can't
basement.
just do that and put flowers on top, call it a day.
No.
That's not okay.
No, I wouldn't suggest that. So, I mean, unless for some reason you have to permanently set up in your living room, but even then it would be like getting a table that looks more like furniture that would blend in with the space as opposed to getting an office desk and like sticking it in your living room. Like I really would not advise about that. It's more about like, you know, looking at the existing furnishings if there's an island or anything like that. Or I've had people who do set up at their kitchen table every day. But then we've done like a nice sideboard beside so they could, you know, store, you know, their laptop or whatever papers in there. So it's not like, because for me, I can't relax when, and maybe I'm a bit neurotic, but I cannot relax when there's a mess around. Like I can't. And if I'm not working, like, I don't want to see it, you know, like I just want it to
Yeah.
be away. And it's the same thing with kids stuff. It's like, I just want it, like it can live there. Inside the cupboards aren't perfect by any means, but like there's doors and I can, you know,
Like
relax.
the OCD wise, you can turn it off and say, you know what, I can't see it. It's out of sight, out of mind. It's done.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I am here for that. Like I don't, there's no illusion that it's all perfect everywhere, you know, because that's not real life. So,
Yeah, no,
but
that's fair. I mean, like in our family, so like I'm more of the like the tidier, putter, awayer, and then my wife's more of like the cleaner. So like
okay.
we complement each other well, but I'm like that. If I sit down, I'm like, okay, day's over. I'm gonna sit down, have that glass of wine or whatever. If I
Yeah,
look over and I see something that's like not in the right spot, I go, oh.
that's
And, you
exactly
know,
what,
wine goes down. I get up, walk over. I put it back in its drawer. I don't really care what the drawer looks like. Same as you. I just throw
yeah.
it in a drawer, close it. I'm like, oh, now it's good.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same way. It has to just be in its spot, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it's more that and just like, you know, I think people traditionally are sort of thinking like, oh, I just need more baskets or I need like, you know, some ugly like storage unit from, you know, IKEA. Not that I, you know, I use IKEA a lot, not that I'm against it, but like just these ugly things that are really just pure function, you
Yeah.
know,
Because
and
they don't fit the actual like the vibe or the purpose of the real
no.
room itself.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's sort of a common theme that comes up. And then I think people that are a lot of people, like I've had some clients have some really fun things on their homes that I wasn't expecting. And I think because and they'd sort of resigned themselves to, oh, you know, our kids are really rough, like, you know, we're just gonna leave it for now. And then with the pandemic when they were home all the time, that was sort of the tipping point, like, okay, no, like
Yeah.
do this. And then those spaces have been fun too because it's like okay, yeah, we'll keep the guitars on the wall and, you know, we'll keep the popcorn machine, but we're going to blend it in, you know. So there
It's
has
fun.
been that element
It's
too of people
it's
just
funny,
being,
like certainly like you were saying, like people being at home, like it makes them just analyze their space more and more. Like I know anytime we've ever really done major like renovations or things in our home has been when my wife's on mat leave. So
Yeah.
she'll be on her mat leave and at home, and she's stuck at home for like what are close to a year. And she's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, we need to paint this entire room. We got to do this. Got there's like a huge
Yeah.
list of things that just
Yeah.
happened. So like COVID was scary from that because I'm like, oh no, like how long is this going to be
Oh,
going
I
on for?
know. No, so many people just wanted to renovate or, change things. Cause yeah, they just that's all you're seeing, right? So you just kind of
And
get,
so I'm guessing like things like blew up for you too, like coming up, especially with this concept, like the living and design concept where you're going in and you're making people's space, more functional, but also look really good for them. Like that concept must have gotten a lot of traction, I would expect too, in the last couple of years.
yeah. So to be honest, I don't actually like hardly market myself. I'm almost 100% referral. So, it's always been steady. It's always been either like, I'm booking out a couple months or I'm referring to somebody else if people don't want to wait. So yeah, it's been steady and people like it. Like I think people get decision fatigue with interiors and that's why they hire a designer, right? They get
Yeah.
overwhelmed or whatever. And one of the things I do love is like I do like a designer for a day. So that's when I come in, do the consultation, and then we sort of have a week of prep where in my head I'm already designing the space, but then we have a 7-hour block where I'm going back and forth with the client to make like decisions for a whole space, like a whole room or a whole like open concept living, dining, kitchen, not reno, but like,
Mhm.
okay, here's all the finishings. And they love that. Like, because after the day, they're like, I can't believe like this is, things I was agonizing over for months. And then they have their list and, they order things. I have had some of those though, where a year later, they're finally getting like the last piece of furniture because that is still reality
Yeah, with
um,
the delays in supply, I
yeah,
guess.
with some things, but just being able for them to kind of see it play out so quickly. I think
I couldn't even imagine getting an entire space and like the furniture, the furnishings, the design, all that stuff done in a day in 7 hours. Like to me, picking out like one thing exhausts me, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go get a snack. Like I need to, or go to if we're out shopping, I'll go to the food court. I need to do something else because I just don't want to be looking at stuff and making all these tough choices because my brain doesn't put them together in a way that
yeah.
I think
So
I can't see the picture. You know what I mean?
no, and I definitely go back and forth with mood boards like all day. Like it's
Okay,
sort of I have like a first call, around 10 a.m. and I'll be like, here's the vision, what do we think?
right.
And then I'll swap out some pieces and but they do visualize it. It's not like, oh, what do you think of this couch? What do you think of this? Like I never in any aspect of my business, I never do that. I always present like basically a completed concept so that then the client can then visualize it better, right? Like, okay, now I see it. Like this is where it's going to go. Here's the floor plan. Here's, the actual specific pieces, all together on, a design board. And so
Oh,
it's a much easier sell then. Because yeah, if you're just looking at one couch and you have no concept and you're like, oh, I'll figure all that out later, it can be a disaster because it's
yeah,
kind of like some people will pick, you pick some giant, and it's usually the investment piece, right? Like a big piece of furniture like that. And
yeah.
then, you make a wrong choice and then everything else, you're like, oh, I don't really love my couch, but I spent like $4,000 on it. And now,
Yeah. Like no
um,
matter what, you're gonna love it. You're gonna just tell
yeah.
yourself you have to love it.
Yeah, so I think it's really helpful for people to say like, "Oh my gosh, there's a completed like concept. I can see this in my home," and so
No, I'm sure like when you're putting things together, like as much as you're putting the mood boards together, I feel like you're almost just doing it for like the benefit of everyone else. Like you probably in your head see the
oh,
pieces going
100%.
together.
Yeah, yeah, but it does help, like when you're picking up things like area rugs and art too. Like for me, in my head, I'm like, oh, I think these are going to work together. But then when I actually layer them together and a client is able to see that, they're like, oh, that, I love that, and it does really work together. So yeah, it is for them, but it is also to make sure all these little details in my head actually make sense on paper or on screen, I guess.
No, that makes sense. And so to if people want to do this designer for a day thing, like I mean, are you booking like months and months and months out right now? Like how is that looking?
No, now probably October kind of thing.
Okay.
I guess we're July, so it's a little bit out,
So
but
couple of months out for the
yeah.
designer for a day. And so like and if you're doing these, like are you doing like I don't even know how you do it. Like are you doing like 10 at a time type thing? Like I don't know how you keep
No,
all that stuff together in
no,
your mind without
no. So yeah, I used to do a lot. Now I'll do kind of like a big custom project, and then alongside of this, I'll do like two a month. because
Okay.
I've done two in one week before, and it nearly killed me. Like I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God. Because even though it's like a 7 hour day, in my head it's a lot longer because it's the prep leading up, and then it's like maximum creativity for 7
Yeah.
hours, and then then afterwards you feel almost like high. You're like, I'm so like, it is very satisfying to pull this together so quickly,
Yeah.
and then to see the client so happy. So yeah, I only
So
do
cool.
max one of those a week, but usually I just schedule like two a month. It is good for me. I am trying to like work-life balance with the kids and everything. So
Makes sense. Well, and I think then from your client's perspective too, like they get all of you type thing. Like
yeah,
they're not just getting like, here's the snippet you're gonna get of me and then see you later. It's kind of like you have your full
no,
attention, you're right in on it.
exactly. I love, this concept, and that did change over the pandemic, because before I always had all these projects going on in various stages, and now I'm really like, let's start, let's finish it, let's make sure you're happy, and then next, not all at the same time. So
That's awesome. I think it's a win for you from a work-life balance. I think it's a win for clients too,
yeah,
because they just know they have like your full dedicated, attention, which is really cool.
yeah.
So if someone wants to book that, if they wanted to get a hold of you, like what's the best way to say, okay, I want a designer for a day, like this is it, sign me up. Like how do they do it?
Well, on my website, there is a link there to inquire for that specific service, like designer for a day.
Hmm.
But I mean, in general, too, I always say, like, send me a DM on Instagram. If you have questions or anything, or you can fill out my contact form on my email. But I'm not one of those really formal people, so it can begin anyway. But the specifics are all on my website on the designer for a day tab. So
Okay, and the website is ashleyizsak.com.
yeah,
Okay, perfect.
yeah,
So people can, I'm sure, no doubt find that one.
yeah.
I'm sure you're readily findable on Google and everywhere else.
Yeah, as long as
Um,
you know how to spell my last name.
yeah,
Because
that's the struggle. That's the struggle. Well, no, that's amazing. Well, thank you again so much for doing this. I think there's a lot of good information that came out of it. And it's amazing, and it's eye opening to think that spaces can have all those different functions. Like we talked about, like it can be work from home, study from home. It can have parenting and kind of play date needs. It can have
Mhm.
hosting family and friends, and all that can be crammed into a space as long as you think through and you actually design it properly with all that in mind. So yeah, no, it's super, super cool. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's good to catch up with you. And yeah, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay,
Thanks.
we'll see you later. Bye.
Okay, bye.